Shut up and sit down.
The current state of politics is unsustainable, politically, economically.
You still have distrust there.
We all come from very different places.
Man, we don't want the government to do a damn thing.
We deserve better.
People have to have the information in front of them.
It is about supporting, platforming, and assisting the people who are out here actually doing the fight.
There you go. Like, just promote people who are doing something. Volunteer to work with people who you like. And
take an issue that's important to you and do something.
You are part of that declaration against tyranny.
This conversation gives me a little more hope for the future.
The one, the only.
Fight for liberty. This is the cherry on top.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Fight for Liberty Live. I'm your host David Fite, as always here to fire you up about some amazing people in the liberty movement, and tonight we are sitting down with the hottest city council candidate around. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. You heard about them first last week. We are now sponsored by Streamlabs Ultra. It is a great all-in-one online streaming service that combines most of the needed functionality of OBS, Restream, Shopify, and Canva. Their desktop software gives you an open source broadcasting system with guest cameras and multi-streaming built right in. Online dashboard helps you create logos, thumbnails, overlays, a merch store, a website, and all sorts of other things, all with templates way more templates than you'll possibly know what to do with. All just for $19 a month or $149 a year. That is less than any of the other services that I just mentioned. And if you use the link in the description below, you can get $9 off your first month or $10 off your first year. Also, super excited to introduce you guys to Crafton, is our newest sponsor. So they are a all-in-one business services company. They provide all sorts of services like legal formation, bookkeeping, branding, marketing, tax prep, and all sorts of other stuff. And now they're just announcing a brand new startup package so that you can get your idea or your side hustle into a fully functioning business for under $1,000. So go on over Crafton US, check them out. Use the link below to help support the channel and the network and everything else. But without further ado, Jessica Fenske, better known as Forest Mommy, is an activist influencer who's now running for city council in the 4th district of Arvada, Colorado. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jess.
Hi, thank you for inviting me on and having me on.
My pleasure. So I always like to start out with kind of an introduction testimonial question. So I'm curious, when did you first realize that you were a libertarian?
Like all my life I kind of have been. That makes sense. But like when I really realized it was definitely during COVID. That like there was the reasons I didn't trust the government all along was all part of this. I just never kind of put it together, had the time to focus on it, I guess you could say. So I would say my parents took me to a Ross Perot rally in 1993. So pretty much since then I've been,
Yeah, once you're broken out of the two-party system, it's hard to go back. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like my parents were definitely like GOP people, but they were more libertarian. They just didn't know. We didn't. The internet was different back. It was new back then. They didn't know, but they're definitely libertarian people, and the way they raised me was definitely libertarian.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to like the quasi-Republican libertarian upbringing for sure. So what prompted you to start the social media account and start like sharing what you believe as loudly as you have been?
So when COVID happened, I had kind of had a big Facebook account up until COVID, and then I got doxxed on Facebook. So this is like a repeating thing for me. I got doxxed off of Facebook, and I was like, okay, I'm done with Facebook. Got off of Facebook, and that was like right as COVID was happening. So I had made the Twitter, and I liked the anonymity you could have with Twitter more. So and then when everything was happening, I have a different kind of life. I don't really have the kind of things to lose a lot of people do. So I was like, I was just saying what I feel like a lot of people felt, and I was just screaming it out into the void. And eventually it just built and built and built, and people appreciated it. And I just realized this the other day, like a lot of people would message me and say, thank you for saying that, because I can't say that out loud. And I was like, oh my, that's where we are. That's where we are in this world, where me just saying, hey, maybe the government's wrong was like wild, where people can't even like say that stuff out loud. So I just kept going and going, and I've built a following. I've built connections off of Twitter now, but I have no connections to anything. I'm just a normal suburbs girl. And it's just like built and built and built, and it keeps getting crazier and crazier. So
that's the nuts thing about Twitter. Like when I first made Twitter, when I first made it, I was still in high school, and it was just, it was like drunk text from last night or whatever. It was like some of the first accounts I followed, and just like some of these old like shit my dad says back when they had like a Twitter account that was posting quotes from the book, and like real old school Twitter. And it was just like, for fun, I had like 4 followers. When I got back on it as like a political thing in 2020 or like 2019, I reactivated it when I was running for city council, and it was still kind of small and like, just me kind of screaming into the void. And now it's a place where, it was until today, a place where like I have actors and movie stars and wrestlers and people that I've admired my entire life following me and talking to me and in my messages. And it's like,
yeah, do you want to talk about how you got banned? Because I'm like, tell me about it, because I know how it feels. You can tell me how it like you can tell me your experience.
Oh man, honestly, it's kind of perfect that I'm having somebody that's been suspended as many times as you are on the show tonight. It's kind of serendipitous, but for those of you that don't know, my Twitter account is no more. So the handle that's down here is the new one. It's got like 91 followers. So go help me boost that back up, please.
And share it.
But it's honestly kind of encouraging, because I started the day at 20, so that's not bad for a day of trying to recover. But yeah, the Twitter people do not like it when you praise cop killers. It's called glorifying violence, and I'm not sorry.
Well, and Elon just literally yesterday said something like, "Oh, censorship, we're not doing that anymore." And I commented, I'm like, okay, because I bought the check mark just to do it, right? After I got my account back, I was like, that's the least I could do for giving me my account back. But like, I'm like, I've known more people who have gotten their 7 days bans in the last like 2 months than before, and now your ban, is it have you appealed it? Like, I don't know.
I appealed it, but I haven't heard anything back about it yet. I honestly don't have very high hopes for the appeal, because it's fairly cut and dry that I did what they said I did. Whether or not you think it's wrong, I don't know, but I definitely did the thing. So
but still, that's the kind of stuff that shouldn't be censored. Saying, hey, these cop killers, maybe they were in the right. I don't know, like that's stuff that should be allowed. If he's all Mr. I'm not censorship,
The crazy thing is, like, I made that tweet. It was actually, something that I've never done, but I spent about an hour and a half just scrolling down through one of those like Fite accounts that are like, just post like videos of like random people getting into fights, or like, crazy arrests and like all these other things. I was just scrolling for like an hour and a half watching all of these crazy videos. Like when I should have been getting ready for bed, I was getting like all amped up watching these people beat the shit out of each other. But I was just like, halfway through a thread of those when I stumbled on this video and made the post. And there was a bunch of videos that I watched in there that the arrest went the other way around, where the person ended up getting very brutally injured or killed. And then a whole bunch of videos where, no cops were involved at all. And there's so many people in all of the comment sections of all of those videos praising whoever won in that scenario. But of course, my comment on the guy who's now being sentenced to death for doing what he did. That's not okay. I can't talk about people on death row for silly things, but you can say, oh, that guy got what he deserved because he shouldn't have messed with the cops. He deserved to get shot. That's completely fine to say on Twitter.
I just don't want Elon out there lying. Like, stop. Just
Right.
You do care about censorship. There is still stuff going on, and I know how I feel. Like when I got banned, like I was depressed when I got banned. When I like got really banned. You know, I was banned for 1 year on the one account, but I still had that other account, and then they banned that one, and I couldn't do another. It was like, this is the only place I have some YouTube. I had other followings to some extent, but like when your voice gets silenced even a little bit, it's like it fucked with me. I'll be honest. Like it fucked with me where I was like, this is where I'm getting my message out, you know? And
yeah,
it's not right when they do that. It's just not right.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Justin O'Donnell for reaching out to you, but I was starting to freak out. Like, this is the only way I know how to talk to her. Like, how am I supposed to send her the links for tonight? Like, I was in the middle of a conversation with 2 other people about scheduling shows last night when I went to bed, and somebody else about like a business like partnership, and I'm like, fuck. Luckily.
Twitter is so like, Twitter is magic. Twitter is magic. The fact that the least amount of people use Twitter, but it is the most like influential, right?
Yeah.
It is the spellcaster, in my opinion, of all the social media. And so when you get cut off from it, or like you're connecting with people and it gets cut off, and it's like, oh, it's just not feel good.
Yeah, and I wish that like, I feel like, because I'm in read-only mode, right? I can still like log in and see everything. I just can't do anything. I feel like you should still be able to message people in that mode. Like,
sometimes it says you can, but that would like not let me before when I was on weird bans and stuff. It would say you can DM people, but it never would let me.
Yeah, I've tried a couple times, and like it won't let a DM go through. And like, I feel like if that wasn't the case, like if I could still DM everybody that I could DM, I think I would be fine. Like, I definitely wouldn't have freaked me out nearly as much, because like if I could still have gotten a hold of you, and like still gotten a hold of Mark Pellegrino, and like, you know, a couple of these other people that like, this is my only avenue. Luckily, a lot of people I also have on Facebook, but especially the more famous people I only have on Twitter. And I'm like, I gotta just hope that they see my like help me find my friends post, or like see that I followed them and they're like, what? But the kind of people that have like hundreds of thousands of followers aren't going to notice my one random 90 account or 90 follower account following them. That's not going to be a thing. So I don't know. We'll see. I have high hopes. I don't know if I should, but I do.
If you need help writing an appeal, my producer is really good at writing appeals. We've even won some of my YouTube strikes and stuff. So if you need help.
All right. I'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. How many times have you been suspended from Twitter?
So my Forest Mommy account got banned at one point, December 2021. And then I had my other account, the Desert Daddy Terminator Mommy account. I had that all the way through August, and then they banned that. And then I had 2 other ones that I had made previously, and they let me use them for a little bit, and then they banned those. And then slowly I got one back after Elon came back, and then the Forest Mommy one came back before the Desert Daddy one randomly. The whole time I had appealed it 100 times and said they said it was because of the picture, because the nipples were showing in the picture, and I'm like, I will change the picture. I'll change the picture. Like, I have no problem just changing the picture. And they did nothing for a whole year. And then they eventually gave that one back. And then now the other ones all came back too, randomly. Just like randomly. I don't even know why the Desert Daddy one ever got banned. They never told me. I think it was because I used the word groomer. Like, that's it. But they gave it all back. So it was like, I had 2 big accounts and then like 1 decent account got banned, but everything's back now. So So now I'm like, I want to cause trouble. Like, use them to be Dennis a little bit, parody accounts and stuff.
Man, he's been having some fun. I'm loving that shit. It's getting better and better every day. And
he's so good at it. And I'm like, that's trolling. That is good, blessed trolling. That. Because he goes after the right. Even when I got banned, he went after me. But it wasn't like he went after me. It's just funny. It's just funny to pretend to be people.
Yeah. It was really fun when he was specifically timing it like after people got banned, so it was like really catch people because it's like, oh, this is just their new account.
Let me help me find my friends, like we all did, right?
My favorite thing to do with his account though is to like scroll back a few weeks and read like his parody tweets with the different headers on them, because like, you know, reading stuff that he posted as Joe Walsh as David Hogg is kind of amusing. Not that Joe Walsh and David Hogg are very different, but you know, it's still kind of amusing.
Did you see the community notes on the David Hogg one today? It was like, this is not David Hogg.
I reported that community note as not helpful.
This is like, people don't get it, and this is what's so funny right now is all these like the corporate journalists, the ones who came after me and stuff, they are so upset about it, and we're just like, this is hilarious. They're like, no, you don't know who's real or not. They could be parodying us, and I'm like, you deserve to be parodied because you're an idiot. Like, it's a beautiful time. I love, like, I'm like, I don't even care like the crazy stuff that's been happening to me. I'm like, I don't even care. It's just funny.
Yeah. And I feel like with Dennis specifically, the fact that he doesn't change his bio makes it like okay in a way. Like you can very, very quickly and easily tell that it's parody. Like all you have to do is click on it. Like he shouldn't really fool too many people seriously. Like it's funny, and then you click on it, you see it's Dennis, and it's like, okay, it's Dennis. Like I feel like if he was changing his bios to like be exactly the other person's bio or something like that and really trying to like fake people out, then maybe you'd have an argument of like, oh my god, this is dangerous. But like in my opinion, it's no different than like SNL. Like it's just a funny version of somebody for the public to laugh at because the people themselves are stupid.
And he gets everybody. Like he's a lot of different people will be like, oh yeah, I figured out, like they didn't know Dennis, and then they got caught, you know, whatever, and they're like, you know, like it just gets everybody. It's hilarious. It's it's just the right kind of trolling, especially the people he's been going after, like Joe Walsh and stuff. Like it's just
the fact that he parodied Joe Walsh, and then with the very next parody he did, he got Joe Walsh is fucking hilarious.
And who was it? Who did he say? He said someone passed away the other day, and people were mad. I don't know if it wasn't Assange or someone, but it was something like that. And like even Ford Fisher got mad, but they're like, "Bud, Dennis and Ford are buds now." Like, if you can, it's just hilarious.
So I'm gonna read a couple of these comments off because some of them are relevant. Apparently, Cajun Libertarian also got nuked today, which I didn't realize, but pour one out for him. Patricia's asking what I'm drinking tonight, and this is just an energy drink because I am a tired dad of a 2-month-old. And Steve in here is asking why you got banned for a nipple when there's porn on Twitter. But I think it was in your profile picture, right?
Yeah. You can't, in your header or your profile, you can't have any nude, which I get now. I'm like, it would be all dick pics, right? Because that's how dudes are. No offense, but that's how dudes are. It would be like all dick pics. So I'm like, I get it. Why there's not. So that's why, but they didn't let me just change it for over a whole year. So
yeah, that's the part that's ridiculous. It's like you're not allowed to just make a mistake and like not think a decision through before you do it. Like, come on, we've all.
Well, and that's what made me feel like they thought it was more what I say, and like I really think the FBI and all them that we found through the Twitter files and stuff, they were watching some of our algorithms, how powerful some of us could be, just saying things, just like, hey, the government's bad, you know, like, and they had to shut that down whatever way they could.
Yeah. I think the first thing that I ever saw from you was the video that I think is still your pinned tweet of you like looking out the window with the binoculars.
Yeah.
That shit made me laugh so fucking hard.
That's from May 2020. And like I was like, I saw people were getting like that. They were getting all the like snitchy ass people,
Mhm.
you know, and I was like, so I made that video, and it's so cringy, but it's so like
Yeah.
it's still pertinent. It is
Yeah.
still pertinent because these people are trying to like move past this stuff, and I'm like, no. We're not moving past what you did. So
Speaking of Dennis and parody and whatnot, that video actually got me for the first probably 15 seconds of it. I'm like, who is this fucking psychotic ass bitch that's like spying on their neighbors? What is wrong with this woman?
good. See, and I'm not an actor, and I'm not like what like. But I was like, I had to get these stupid little messages out because I saw what was happening, you know, and
yeah, and it's only gotten worse since. Like, I know a lot of it's died out, but then I mean, after like the vaccine stuff came out, and like even now, they're like, I live in New York, like upstate New York, but still the state of New York, where when I just had my son like 8 weeks ago, we still had to have masks in the hospital. We were allowed to have visitors, like all these ridiculous, crazy rules. Like I couldn't go take a like cigarette break if I was visiting my wife while she was in the hospital, because somehow with their logic, I was better off going home for multiple hours and coming back the next day than going outside and smoking a cigarette with the nurses, because somehow that was going to get me to catch COVID more than like going and living my life for the rest of the day and coming back.
And now we have Fauci being like, I never told anyone to shut down. I mean, he did this already once, but he was like, I was just saying that CDC stuff, man. Like, I didn't do it. And it's like, well, why are you getting paid $1 million a year just to relay messages that you were wrong about? Like, and most of the pushback I got during that whole time was from doctors and nurses, and they've all been proven wrong. They've all been proven wrong since it's happened. I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, you're supposed to be our last hope of like, you're the last person someone will listen to half the time as a doctor, you know? And you guys were wrong. You're wrong. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what we do about this world now, because
yeah, I feel like I definitely had very little faith in the like medical community going into COVID, but I still thought that like there was enough, I guess, lack of consensus amongst the industry that there would be at least two sides to the argument, because you know there's constant back and forth about almost everything else to do with health, like what does or doesn't cause cancer, and like, you know, is this good or bad, and like are these diets good or bad, and there's always all of these arguments going on, that I thought that something like this, there would at least be a large enough population of doctors and nurses and health professionals and like dietitians and all these other people that would be like, hey, no, this is bullshit, because they're almost as contrarian as a libertarian most of the time. So I had some faith in them, and they all let me down. And there was like, you know, there's like Robert Malone and a couple other people like that, but like it's a tiny little group of people that actually like stood up for anything during that.
yeah, they all didn't want to be ostracized. They didn't want to be made fun of, because that was the whole thing about anyone. I don't care if you got the vaccine, you believe, I don't care. But the fact is, if I said something against it, if you tried to tell me I'm not allowed to have that opinion, no, like I'm allowed to talk against this. And some of my friends, my doctor and nurse friends, they were hardcore party people, right? And they were like, not healthy people. And they were like, they fell in line with all this stuff, and I was like, okay, like, no, something is wrong. Like, and they've all been proven wrong. Like, everything that I was off of Facebook, but I was still on Instagram, so some of my friends saw me, what I was saying and stuff, and they would be like, they'd attack me, and they were all wrong. Every single one of them that attacked me was wrong, and everything I said was like basically right, because it was just anti-government stuff mostly. So it's like, it was right, you know, and it did worry me. I'm like, how bought off are these doctors? And I met a doctor during all this who, he's like 70, and he's been ostracized all his life because, as a doctor, starting in the 80s, because he didn't believe in big pharma. And he was like, when you go to, even in the 80s, when you start going to med school, big pharma was wooing all these people and like, you got to be part of big pharma. You got to be a big part of big pharma. And he was like, no, you can just be healthy. And like, there are other things you can do.
Right.
And he was ostracized. So I'm like, so thankful I met him during all this. Like, there are good doctors out there. So I had a direct primary a direct primary care doctor. So he's outside of the system to some extent, right? He still pushed everything on me. And I'm like, he's like, you're the healthiest first client I have in the practice, but here, still, you need these meds. And I'm like, bro, like, no, that doesn't make any sense, And then he didn't push it the next time I went because now it was a whole different culture, right? Like, it was just, you just know. I've always been very aware of sales. I'm in sales, technically. I'm not a salesy real estate broker, but I'm in sales. I've always been, you're always aware when people are just trying to sell you on something, right?
Yep.
Like, you get that little, like, I think you're trying to push me. I think you're trying to push me into something I don't need, right? And like, enough people didn't have that.
Yeah.
That was a problem.
It's like being gay. Salesmen can smell each other from like a mile away.
The gay people out there like, oh yeah, you're gay.
But yeah, I feel like I was raised in a very like traditional, respect authority kind of household, and so growing up, I went to a normal doctor that was part of big pharma and everything, and I was he was better than most, I'll say. My like primary care doctor growing up was the type that like told my sister she didn't really need I'm gonna space on what the like one shot that most girls get in their like teens.
The Devo or Devo-Para.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
that was.
They pushed that shit. They pushed that shit like crazy.
Yeah, he said, or he at least was upfront about the fact that she didn't really need that until like way later, because like at the time it was getting pushed on like 12 or 13-year-olds, and he was like, this can wait until you're like 17, because like this is not important for somebody that's like not sexually active, not like doing any of this other stuff, like this isn't. So like our doctor was like a little bit better than most, but I still grew up like that's the doctor, and these people talking about like herbs and fucking bath salts and crystals and all these other things are fucking ridiculous. And as I got older, I'm like, there's like multiple millions of years of people living way longer than we live based off of just these like herbs and shit that are considered kooky, and all of these other things have terrible side effects and are just like being pushed by this terrible system, the same way that a bunch of other things I know are bullshit are being pushed. So why do I still trust this fucking system? And then I started taking psychedelics and everything else, and then it was just like it was all over from there.
That's what was really creepy, because I'm like an older millennial. And I remember I had to go to the hospital one time for a period issue, and they like right away were like, get her on birth control. And I was not sexually active. I was a dork. Like, that was just not even on the table, right? And my parents are very conservative, so they were like, no. But there are so many people I know who were on birth control and other meds super early, like in high school. And I'm also someone like, you do need to protect yourself. If you don't want to be pregnant, maybe have like every layer you fucking can, right? But it's just amazing how they put so many people on that so early. And I never was on birth control ever in my life, and I moved out early. I was raised super conservative, and I was like, I am out. Like, I need to go have fun. Like, I would rather be broke and on my own, paying all my own bills, and living by my own rules. And that's what I did, and that's why I am how I am today. Like, I was broke through my early adult life, but whatever. Like, I was free, and I made good choices. But the way they wanted to put everyone on stuff, and they still do, like everybody's on like all these mind things now, and I don't judge it, because I love recreational drugs. I will say that openly. But like,
fuck yeah.
but they're different from what people are on now. You know, like people are like, I'm sad, so I need to be on a pill. And it's like, no, I still go for a walk and then I'll party with my friends on the weekend or whatever. You know, it's not like I'm on drugs all the time, but these people they push it so much where it's just like, it's really nefarious in my opinion. Like, I think it's led to some things.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely something to be said for like the over medication of like our generation started, because like you're on the top end. I'm like literally
The Adderall
like,
or Ritalin was huge. Middle school Ritalin was like huge. It was just popping off when I was in middle school. Drugging all the kids. They're like, oh, they don't sit still, drug them.
Yeah.
Give them meth. Give the kids meth. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that one specifically, because I firmly believe that I have ADHD, but I've never been diagnosed, because when I was a kid, my mom was very like, oh, they're just giving kids meth, and like, you know, you're just a boy, like no boys can sit still, whatever. As I've gotten older, I'm like, this is much more serious than just like, I'm a 6-year-old boy. But I'm still, I don't know, I feel like I'm glad that I wasn't medicated as a kid, because I learned how to deal with my ADHD sometimes, and like it's manageable for me.
You learned some coping mechanisms.
Yeah. And now if I do, you know, run into a friend that's like, you know, selling a couple of Adderall or something, and I have a few and I can actually be medicated for a day or two, I can just have like a fucking awesome week and like be super productive and then go back to my normal life. And I'm not dependent on it just to function like most of my friends are. Like if they run out of Adderall, they're just completely useless humans. And like, I'm mostly useless, but like not baseline me is at least a little bit better than that.
We get the shit we need done. No, it's true. And like that, half the times I'm like, when I've done Adderall, I'm like, oh, I get it. I totally get, you know, it's tunnel, because there's other drugs that make you active too, but they aren't productive, right? But Adderall, like, it's a little productive. Like, I totally get it. But same thing too. Like, same with birth control and all that. Like, I'm glad I'm not religious now, but I grew up religious, and I'm like thankful, because I had to go to church and learn how to sit still. I had to learn how to sit still and like not get my ass beat, right? You know? So like, it was like, there are things you can learn beyond medication, even if you have actually something, you know. I think it's good for people to have learned, oh, I can deal with some of this stuff a little bit differently. That's all. But I'm all for drugs.
Yeah.
I'm a libertarian. Come on.
Right. Yeah. And like, I have so many friends, and like, it was really like smacked me in the face with one of my exes who, like, you know, we had a lot of the same symptoms of the ADHD, and like I had worked through some of it and kind of like improved a little bit on myself before I met her, and she was like 7 years older than me, and I'm like, and she's just blaming all of these things, and it's just like, oh, it's just I have ADHD, I just have ADHD, I just have ADHD. And I'm like, yeah, so do I, but like, I'm still able to get this shit done, and you're almost a decade older than me. How did I figure this shit out so much faster than you? Like, this isn't just something that you can excuse away all of your personality flaws. Like, you still need to own up to, like, I made a promise, I need to be able to keep it, even if my ADHD symptoms are making it difficult. Then either don't make the promises or like push through it, like one of the two. But
yeah, especially if they know they can, if you can pinpoint what you're doing and why you're doing it, then you can fix the behavior, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I don't know, it's been an up and down for sure throughout the last couple of years of my life. And like, psychedelics have helped immensely. There's like, if you're someone with ADHD and you're watching this, like, do some acid, and it'll be the best feeling in your entire life, because it'll be like the first time in years that you don't have any symptoms at all, and you're just sitting still listening to the entire Dark Side of the Moon album without moving a single muscle. It's great. And like, honestly, that taught me how to relax a little bit, you know, because that's kind of like the extreme, but it kind of taught me like part of that's possible. You know, you can zone out for a second and just kind of exist and just like watch the sunset for a minute, and like maybe it's not moving around and shit, but like it's still beautiful, and you can just sit there and watch it for a minute, and the world is still going to be there when you come back to reality, and you can just kind of escape it for a minute. That's helped me so much.
It's that I felt the same when I didn't start smoking pot till I was 19. I'd moved out because my parents would have literally killed me. So I was like, I'm not risking that. So I was on my own, and then I tried the pot, and I was like, oh, like if you're not taught to be introspective growing up, which most people aren't, because most humans just aren't introspective, right? But then you'll do pot. Pot's usually like the first like rung, right? And then you could do more after that. But like even just pot made me be like, oh, why did I say that to that person? You know, you sit and think, and you're like, why did I do that? That was stupid. I should be better. You know, it does. And that's why I could never be anti-drug completely, because I'm like, there are benefits to it, I think, for people. And then you bring mushrooms or whatever into it, and it's like, they think the Bible was written while these people were on mushrooms. And I'm like, well, then it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense to me then. Like,
it makes
I'm like,
so
if
much
they were
more
on
sense.
mushrooms and they saw this stuff, okay. Like, it kind of makes sense to me now. So there are we can't deny these psychoactive things in our, like, we can't deny that they're doing something to our deeper spirituality or a deeper whatever you want to call it, you know. I'm all for it. Just not kids. And I don't think kids should smoke pot till I always tell people, I'm like, do not smoke pot or anything till after you're on your own, and you can't get in trouble for it, which I know sounds terrible because most people live at home till they're like 25 anyways, but it's like, still, like, just don't. It's expensive, for Christ's sake, on top of it.
And don't let it like don't let it hook you the same way that like the Adderall and other things are hooking most people, because like I've definitely struggled with that quite a bit, of like the same kind of thing that I mentioned with my friends in Adderall, where like when I run out of weed, I am just like the most irritable, obnoxious, like horrible person, because like all of my anger management goes out the window, all of my like introspectiveness goes out the window, and I'm just like and so like definitely make sure that you're taking like tolerance breaks and making sure that you can still be a functional human without whatever recreational substance you're using,
and use the tools you learn when you're high or whatever, like use those all the time. You try to use them all the time without being high. That's the whole thing. It's like, because a lot of drugs will mess, like there are certain drugs like uppers, they like mess your dopamine levels up and stuff. So like I don't think like weed does. I know you can be physically addicted to weed, but it's different. It's just so different, like, right? But some of the other stuff, like, I didn't try hard drugs till I was over 30. I was like 33 the first time I tried a hard drug, and it was wow, this is different. They do affect differently, right? And these are what they have people like Adderall. They have kids on Adderall, and I never even tried an upper like that till over I was 30. It's like, wow, they have kids on this stuff, like. It's wild, because I was like loving it. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, I definitely think that like there should be an age limit to most of this kind of stuff. And like I've definitely, you know, something that I didn't think I was gonna have to think about and now have over the last, you know, couple months with my kids is like, you know, at what age is it gonna be a yes if my kid walks up to me and says, hey, can I smoke pot with you? It's like,
because you want to be cool, but you don't like want to push it.
Yeah.
You also don't want to like be like so strict about it, because then they're gonna do it anyways, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
if I say no and my kids are anything like I was as a kid, they're going to figure out a way to sneak little bits of it out of my stash without me noticing and smoke it by themselves. And you know, I don't know, like I don't want that, and I definitely don't want like, you know, them getting it somewhere else, somewhere that's not safe. So like I would like them to be getting it from like a trusted source, which I usually do. So
you're like, listen, when you're ready, talk to dad, okay? We don't want you don't want bad weed.
Yeah. Right. Like, the last thing I want, especially with some of the shit that's going on right now with like the K2 and the synthetic weed and stuff like that, there was just a huge arrest in my county of somebody that was selling like fentanyl laced synthetic marijuana, and it's like, that shit's terrible.
I'm like, why are people doing that? Like, that makes no sense.
Right, we live in a state that you can legally grow it and give it away, and like, you know, the black market is thriving right now because it's a gray market, and like there's just no enforcement mechanism on it. So it's beautiful in New York right now. It's like the best it's ever been for weed. Why would you be selling that fake shit? Like, come on.
Yeah, was interesting because we've been legal out here in Colorado for so long, but it is interesting like how much of the black market it did prop up being legalized, and you're like, because the tax difference and all that, and then people just grow it. Like I grew my own a couple summers. I haven't even started this. I'm too late now, but like, it's why not? Why would you not grow your own? You know,
Right.
like if you can, you're not going to lose your whole house if they come and find you. Back when I was like first starting out, when I first liked weed, I remember I was growing a plant and I was like, oh my God, if they catch me, like they're going to take everything. And I didn't have anything really, but it was like, it was so scary then.
Yeah.
And now it's completely different, obviously. So
yeah, in New York, I think I can have like 8 or 12 plants per person in the house. And the crazy thing is, if I'm not mistaken, it's per person, not per adult. So I can have like plants based off of my like 3-month-old son. Too.
I'm sure.
So,
Yeah, I'm sure. The thing is here in Colorado too, there's so much outdoor growing that like if I would have my plants outdoors, and so they would totally get seeded and stuff. Like it was just there's just so much of it here where it's just what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Luckily, I don't think I'll have that problem because I would be probably the only person, at least in my side of town, growing outdoor. So that would be nice. So what pushed you to take this activism into the actual electoral politics side of things and run for city council?
So, I mean, all along with Forest Mommy and stuff, I was like slightly politically involved. And then like 2021, I got more involved with the Mises Caucus and the LP of Colorado, and then at the end of 2020, there's been all these like random catalysts that happened this year. It's crazy. But at the end of 2022, we needed some new state organizers out here for the Mises Caucus. So they asked me, I'm like, yeah, of course, that's fine. Because I like doing stuff. Like I like organizing things and getting people together. That's what I did during all of 2020. I've had in-person meetups during all of 2020 with people from Twitter out here and stuff, and like some of them are LP, some of them not. Like we're all just like minded, right? Similar. So January of this year, I got really involved, started going to all our county affiliate meetings, going to everything, started speaking at the Capitol. I did some speaking at the Capitol against and for bills. And then I did the thing that kind of I always think back, like what was the catalyst that really, because this year has just been nuts. But I spoke at an event in January for one that we have a thing out here called TABOR, Taxpayers Bill of Rights, basically in Colorado. Like it's the only place where we get our money back from the taxpayers get their money back. This guy passed it 30 years ago, and he would never have been able to pass it nowadays because the left hates it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I did a speech there, just like we had a booth, a Colorado Libertarian booth, and they're like, oh, go to his, go to, and I was like, oh God, I'm not a public, like I would rather stand naked in front of people than speak in front of people. Like I could do that. Like I could just stand there. Much better. I'm getting better now. But they're like, do a speech, just give the spiel. My guy who's my campaign manager now kind of helped. He's like, just say this. And I was like, okay. So I said all this stuff, and then afterwards, all these people came up to me and were like, "Oh my God, we love it! Like we love it." A lot of them are more Republican and stuff, and they're like, "We're so sick of the Republican Party now," and like they're just so sick of everything, and they liked what I had to say, so they came to me, and so I was like, "Okay," so I could start getting more involved and going to all these things locally. And so we have a camp, with the Mises Caucus. It's all about local. We're taking over local, just as the left did. That's what happened in Colorado. Is the left snuck in and took over everything local, and so and like are controlling everything, which I don't care necessarily, but they control everything in the authoritarian way, not the right way, right?
Right.
So so our campaigns guy out here on the LP Colorado board was like, your district's open, no one's filed yet. I don't have kids, I don't work full time, like I have the time for it. So it was like, and then we have another guy running in a different district in Arvada, and he had already kind of filed. So I was like, oh God. I was like, I don't want to do it. I do not want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. And then I was like, okay, I will file on Monday and we'll see what happens. And then, so I file, and literally within 24 hours, I get doxxed by the local news journalist. So it was kind of like, okay, little old me, like, was so upsetting to this dude that he had to put my address on the internet and try to get me harmed, So now I'm like full speed ahead. I have all the support. The GOP isn't running anyone, so I'm only running against one person. Like, it's just, I never wanted to be in politics at all, but the more I'm like Forest Mommy, where I'm like, I'm just me. This is what I have to say. Our enemy is the government. You guys aren't my enemy. The enemy is the government in telling you which way you have to live. And that's why there's always been this right and left battle, but it's always been battle for control. And I'm like, maybe I can step in and like educate people, how to get more involved, because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I was just like, okay, let's do it. Now I'm like, I'm gonna make it so visible. I'm gonna teach everybody how to get involved locally. I'm gonna like be very open about everything that's going on, so that everyone knows, because no one cares about local. It's so hard to care about local, but yet it should be so easy, right? It should be the easiest thing, but everyone's like, oh, Trump, Biden, and that's all they care about. And I'm like, well, okay, well, you're like, the guy I'm running against has been in there for 12 years. He's been in there for 12 years. Like, get the fuck out. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I don't even want to do more than 2 terms. So it's just, I'm just excited I'm not a politician, and I've been every time I meet with people, I'm very real. I'm very who I am. I'm very not polished at all. Like, I'm not a polished politician at all. I've gotten all these like advice through Twitter and stuff, through other people, like, you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like, I can't.
No.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Don't change a thing. You're doing great.
No. And it's working. People are backing me. People are offering to volunteer for me so in Arvada, I know you know the story of Johnny Hurley.
Mm-hmm.
He got shot by the cops here.
Yeah.
After being a good guy with a gun and stopping a bad guy. So he has a group, We Are Change. So we are like, they love me. Everybody loves me. Like, there's from all these different things. So I'm like, I let's do this. Let's take back over local. If it takes me to be a catalyst to kind of help people learn how to do it, and like how to get more involved and not be snobby. They're so snobby.
Yeah.
I went to a chamber event, was the state of the city address by our mayor who's leaving, and it was just so snobby. And I'm like, the average person doesn't go to these events. They're not there. They don't know who's who. They don't know people. Like, some of the businesses obviously are part of the chamber and stuff, but it's like, I'm the average person. I'm going to go door to door and talk to the average person this whole summer. And I'm going to get like, it's so nailed down on our issues and like what is really important to everyone, really, that aren't connected and aren't involved, which I think that's what libertarians need to be doing. Like, screw that snobby shit. I hate the snobby stuff, because I mean, I look like a snob, but I'm not a snob at all. Like, I'm the least snobby person, and I hate that snobby stuff.
Yeah, I feel like a big chunk of the issue has been, I talk about this a lot, of like the kind of reversal of politics, where it used to be, people talking to their representatives and then the representatives representing, and now it's kind of the opposite, where the representatives / the media tell the people what to care about. And it's fairly inevitable, once you reach a structure like that where the media gets to set narratives, that they would focus on national politics, because it's the most profitable. It's, you can get tens of millions of people to listen to a newscast about Trump a newscast about you doesn't get much views because, like, only a very small portion of the country cares. And so they're not going to get millions of dollars in advertising if they're actually focusing on local. And unfortunately, libertarian activists and people and like podcasters and even like candidates and stuff have fallen into that same trap of like, oh, well, I can get more attention if I run for president. It's like, fuck president, run for state house. Like, run for city council.
Roasting. There was just a fake guy from Colorado he says he's a libertarian. He's not. I won't say his name, but like he was just on the Larry Sharp thing. We were roasting him in the comments. There are these fake people too who just want to run for president and say they're libertarian. This person has run as a unity person, a Democrat, a Republican, and now libertarian within a year after facing identity theft charges. And like, I'm anti, some of that stuff. But like, if you have all these charges against you, how are you already running? So there's this weird, we need to focus on local, on the school boards. Like even out here where I'm at, our school, I don't have kids, so my mind is different, right? But I'm also like, protect the kids. I don't want to mess with the kids at all.
Yeah.
And our school board is messed up out here. And I'm like, it's because me too, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't being involved. And it's hard to be involved. It's hard to get anyone for our LP. It's hard to get anyone to show up for that. Even the GOP, local GOP, it's hard to get anyone to show up for that. Like the average person has no time and no brain power for any local government stuff at all. They're like, oh, Trump, they're like the federal one side versus that's all they can manage. And I kind of get it. So that's my whole thing. My whole spiel is I'm going to try and I need to get these people involved. Like this is their lives. They're kids that are being forced to go to these places that maybe aren't the best for them. Like it's they've made it so snobby. The guy I'm running against is so snobby and like tries to make it like they're so elite. And it's like, no, we need to get people like me. Even if I could somehow make it where like someone's like it's jury duty almost to be on city council, like something like that would be better than what's going on now. It's hard but people don't have the brain power. I went to Easter and they were like, wait, what happened? I was trying to explain how I'm running for local politics to this Mr. Forrest Mommy's family. And they were like, I don't know, whatever. Like, it's just, even the local politics is too much for people. And I'm like, we got to change that. That needs to stop. And I know people don't want to be thinking politics, but you kind of have to some extent if they're forcing you to do stuff.
I mean, if you have to give up caring about national politics to care about local politics, good. Do that. Like the less people that care about national politics, the better. Like that's if you have to make that trade, that seems like a good trade to me. I think you're 100% right that the just complete ignoring of local politics has been a huge detriment because like there have been multiple nefarious groups of people across the country, whether on the right or the left, that have been able to take over various local groups and counties and such across the country to do just some crazy shit. And at this point, so in New York State we have fusion voting, so you can run on multiple party lines. And when I lived in New York City, which you would think would be a little bit more high profile than, even local is not 1,000 people, it's 8 million, right? And every single judge on my ballot was on every single party line. I did not actually have a vote for any of the judges in my district in Brooklyn.
They probably didn't make it easy to find out what they've judged on, right? No.
So yeah, I mean, like Democrat, Republican, conservative, working families, liberal, like all 5 parties had the same name on it. It's like, how are you both things? How are you all 5 of these things? That's not possible. Like, it's just objectively not possible. But around here where I live now, upstate, it's just almost everybody runs unopposed. There's just isn't elections on the local level. Like mayor and maybe state house might be contested. Actually, state house hasn't been contested in 8 years in my district. It's just the same people doing
There's
the
all
same
sorts
shit.
of things like that. Boards, metro boards, all sorts of stuff that's not contested. That people, we have some people trying to get on like some metro boards and stuff too out here now, where we're just like, just do it.
Yeah.
Just why not? You're uncontested. Like,
Mhm.
I wasn't planning on running much of a campaign until I got attacked, and I was like, okay, something is going on, so I have to run a campaign. And now I'm like, I have to talk to the people more than I thought I would, and like it's good, but like some of this stuff, yeah, you can just get on these metro boards, and then you can at least make or like help with the fiscal stuff,
Yeah.
the more libertarian minded stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the less glamorous jobs are a lot easier to run as a libertarian because, like, a legislative position, you have to somehow convince other people to agree with you. Even as local as city council, like, if you get elected, you're going to have to get other city council members to agree with you and vote with you on something, which, depending on where you live, might be a completely impossible thing to do, and therefore your candidacy and even winning is fairly pointless. Colorado, I know, is better than most places, but like there's a lot of people that even if they were to run and be a lone city council person, it would just be completely and totally pointless. Where if they were to run to be their like county comptroller, where they get to audit the books and be the only person, like the person in charge of auditing the books, that's a whole lot more important. That's a whole lot more effectiveness that you can have. And like, especially if you're trying to run something a little bit bigger, like Congress is pointless. Like running for U.S. House is completely pointless. But if you can run for like, again, like state comptroller or something like that, those are positions that we've had a lot of success with in the party. People like Todd Hagopian running in Oklahoma, getting over 300,000 votes for a state comptroller. Like those are races we've had good results in. And I think if we focused more on that kind of stuff, we would actually see a more libertarian world play out, at least, even if we're not glamorous and getting in the news and growing as a party that much. We would be able to point to, this is how a county that's run by a libertarian looks. Look at how balanced their budget is. Look at how good their roads are. Look at how good their schools are. That's because a libertarian stepped in and made it better.
Totally agree. And out here in Colorado, we have a mayor. We have a Mises Caucus Libertarian mayor out here. And it was kind of the same thing where, like, he was a big catalyst, too, where I was like, okay, let's try and prove, like, I've always been a volunteer and stuff in all my life because I've always been like, you have to, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. You got to walk the walk. Everyone's got talk, right? Everyone talks. So once he won, and I'd been talking to him about some of the other little towns, like maybe we, strategizing and stuff. And then when this race came up for me, it was like, okay, I guess I should, because there's a good chance I can win. The guy who's running against me sucks. Everyone hates him. I have a stack of, this is all petitions. So the guy I'm running against, who's been in for 12 years, a couple years ago, everyone tried to recall him. Like, I have a stack of petitions against him. He's not a good dude, and he made bad decisions, and people wanted him out. So there's just all this stuff where, like, we need people like us to get in. And even if we're not polished, and they were crazy like me, thank God I've never been a Trump fan, but, like, he definitely broke the mold where you're like, you can be a little crazy, right? So, and I've been laughing because all these GOP ladies are like, they even follow me on Twitter, and they're like, oh, I think they like to live a little vicariously through me because I'm a little crazy, right? But they're fine with that because they know I'm not dangerous. Like, the crazy I am is not, I'm not doing it in front of kids or, whatever. Like, it's safe. So, yeah, more people just need to, and nothing will happen to I can guarantee if anyone else runs for city council this year, nothing will happen to them like what has happened to me. So they're safe. Like, they're safe. Some weird stuff happened to me, and I'm like, I can guarantee that won't happen to other people. So you're fine. You're fine.
Let's hope not, at least. Like, do you want to talk about that a little bit, about like the doxing and the kind of attacking from the local politicians and media that you've had to face since you've announced?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go over like within 12 hours, a guy who I had called out for doxing before doxed me. He was teaching me a lesson for calling him out, but it totally helped me. I got 10,000 plus followers from it after he posted it. So I was like, he gave me more advertising than I could have even paid for, because he literally even brought me people in my own district. Like once Jesse Kelly shared it. And even the other day, yesterday, I was on a podcast and someone in my district found me through that random ass podcast too. It's like, so I definitely have the online presence down. And yeah, so I got doxxed. For people who don't know. It is public info, but the way he did it was doxing. He was trying to have me harmed. He wanted me intimidated. He wanted me hurt. He wanted me scared. The way he did it, the way he worded it, and his apology was smarmy as shit too. And then the local news, they actually reached out and interviewed me, and they tried to make me look dumb, but they ended up making me look cool too. They all keep making me look cool. And another person, I spoke at a Free Assange rally, because I do believe in journalism. I believe in that kind of journalism, Assange kind of journalism. I don't believe in this propagandist shit where they're working for Pfizer. I don't believe in that. That's not journalism to me, right? So I spoke at this rally, and someone showed up specifically, I think, to do a hit piece on me, because they like wrote this little bit of a thing on the actual rally and the good quotes for Assange, who was like a good journalist and he did the right thing. And then like the rest of it was a hit piece on me. I was like, why? And she did the same thing. She did the same thing as that original the bigger anchor did, because she like cut off comments and like said some of the same things he said. And I'm like, what? Are you just copying him? And when they cut off comments on Twitter, it makes everyone quote tweet it, right? So you get more attention, even if it's negative. So I'm like, I think she did it on purpose. But every time they do something, it just helps my cause. That's what's like so funny about it. Like they don't get what they're up against. They are so in their echo chamber that they have no idea the radicals the last 3 years have built. Like the communities, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of the like mainstream media is and even on a local level, and probably even more so on a local level, because they're attacked a lot less and they're in a much smaller spotlight, they feel invincible and they feel so much superior. Like, I mean, they really showed their ass, you know, on a national level with like the ivermectin Joe Rogan thing, and they were so convinced that they were right, that they were, you know, winning, that they were convincing no one to do ivermectin, or you know, no one to even consider it as a treatment. And meanwhile, Joe Rogan is having a doctor on explaining why it's okay and getting 40 times the views of every single show criticizing him combined. And it's like, you guys are losing this fight. Like, you think you've got something that you don't. Like, you're not as isolated anymore. We have this avenue through podcasts and blogs and you know, like based on what's the like new blogging thing that everybody's on? Substack, that's what I'm thinking of. You know, like we have all of these things that are actively competing with mainstream media, that they don't have the monopoly that they think they do.
And even with all the censorship, even with you saw the Twitter files and all that, even all that censorship through 2020, 2021, I found the right information. I found the correct information. I found the correct data. I found the correct experts who weren't government approved expert. You know, like they were not expecting that, like people like us, to be able to do that. We did like we found, like I was just saying the other day, half the people, they would say, oh, these trusted experts, and I'm like, they were just as random as anybody. These trusted experts that the news would always be quoting, right? And it was like, but then they would downplay anybody else who went against the narrative, but even though they were experts just as much. So it has been beautiful. Just they don't, I don't think the average most of America knows, but like all of us, we know these people are full of shit. And like it's been pointed out and they know it too, that we know it because they're freaking out. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful to me.
Yeah, and I think the shittiness of like cable companies like Time Warner and like those companies is really, really helpful, because so many people, even boomers and like the silent generation, are yeeting their TV and just watching like Netflix or YouTube or whatever. You know, they can get their Tucker Carlson on YouTube. They can, you know, get all of what they want on the apps and the other streaming services. You don't need cable anymore. So actually I was we just spent a week with my wife's grandparents in Chicago last week, and they're very big like Fox News people, but they're really like they're fairly close to libertarian. Like I've had a lot of like fairly lengthy conversations with them, and they greatly distrust the government, but you know, they're huge like Tucker Carlson gut field kind of people. They watch Kennedy, which is good. I've tried to like steer them more that way. But while we were there, the TV upstairs was logged into their YouTube also, so I just like went through and like watched a bunch of like Kennedy and like other libertarian podcasts and things, and was just like clicking through to fuck up their algorithm and show them more libertarian content, because I know that they don't know how to use YouTube well enough to like not just kind of go down the rabbit hole that the algorithm tells them to. And so I'm like, here, let me just sprinkle some liberty into your algorithm here.
Oh yeah, because we got to do, like, even last night I was at a GOP meeting and I'm like, I'm for weed legalization, but I know you don't like that, and we'll look at that if that comes up. But otherwise, you know, like people are more receptive. Like if we could just convince people the government is the enemy, and I don't understand. Like, and I feel like the left knows too, but they like, I don't know. It's just a bizarre. It's just a bizarre time, and I'm just having fun with it at this point because I'm spreading my message. So,
do you guys have dispensaries in Arvada?
So Arvada, we don't, but our town next to us does. So like, there's a dispensary two miles away from me. So it's not like, but that town, like when you look at it fiscally, they spend more money enforcing pot stuff than they make in taxes and stuff. So like that's why, like, when they ask me, I'm like, well, we'll look at it fiscally, because if we have to create a whole bureaucracy and all this stuff to do it, then no. I'm a total free market capitalist and believe in property rights, but like if we're using taxpayer dollars to do something that doesn't make sense, then I'm not going to be for it. And it's not that I'm against pot, obviously. So, you know, that's kind of, and they get it. And that's how I got them to get on board with me with the cop stuff too. I'm like, listen, I'm not like, I don't hate all cops, but people with Johnny Hurley and then a couple other things that came up, taxpayers are paying for the cops' mistakes. And that's not cool. That is from any fiscal area, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. So like they're like, okay, we can agree with that. So I'm like, okay, good. Like, that's how I will approach it. And body cams. Arvada like fought against body cams for their cops, and it was like, why would you fight against it, you know? And
that's kind
and even the Republicans were like, yeah, that's weird, you should want to have a video, you know. So there's gonna be things like that come up. I think I'll have bipartisan support for. So
nice. Yeah, it's funny. Honestly, like, cops should be for body cams. Like, I've been fucked by body cam footage as the person who's like, well, there's a video of me doing the thing. Like, I can't get out of this. Like, I've definitely been in situations where the body cams helped the cops pin something on me.
Yeah, it's like, why would you not want? It's just weird. Where it's like, why would you not want that? That's something I think citizens should spend their money on. Like, that's fine. That'd be, because it helps everybody know if you're the arbitrary or arbiters of law and order, then it would help. Like, I'm fine with that. So yeah.
I like the, you know, we've been talking a lot about like the kind of focus on local, and I think that you can really get to the heart of a lot more of these issues on a local level. And like I think when you get rid of what the media and the politicians and society and your friends at work and everybody else are telling you to care about, and you actually get to, like you're talking about, go door to door and be like, hey, what do you care about? What is the government doing on a day-to-day basis that's making your life harder that I might be able to change if I got elected to city council? Like, those kinds of conversations aren't happening anymore. And like, regardless of what political party you're a part of, like, obviously I'd love to see libertarians win races all over the country, but I just want to see politicians do more of that across the board. Like, if you are a Democrat and you're a hardcore Democrat and that you believe what they believe, and like that's your party, still give a shit about your constituents. Like, don't just assume that because you're in a blue district you should get all the votes and you don't need to care. Like, you should still be doing this kind of stuff regardless of what party you're in.
And like a lot of like the people on the right and the left, they have huge PACs they can get money from, you know, like Act Blue and stuff. So yeah, they don't care. They don't care. Like, one time there was a girl out here she's a house district somewhere in Colorado on the Front Range, and she was like, if we limit what government people be paid, then it would be like hard for normal people to get in. And then I look at her like account, because she was a elected person, and she had like 100 grand in there, and I was like, the most any of our libertarian candidates ever raised was like 20. Okay, honey. So like, they just are out of touch because they have these big backings, and they're not, like you said, they're, even if, yeah, that's, I'm like, maybe I will force the guy I'm against. He'll have to start going to door. You know, I'll have to make him Mr. HOA president. Like, have to go door to door. That'd be great if it inspires him to do it too, right?
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of these like campaign finance laws, how much they really fuck over the little people, and they're supposed to like help combat corruption. Like, for instance, I ran for New York City Council back in 2019, and you cannot pay yourself from your campaign, and you cannot spend any campaign contributions on anything that is like to keep yourself alive. It's not quite worded like that, but it's very similar. It's specifically like, you know, life necessities or something like that. So you can't pay your rent, you can't buy yourself food or groceries or anything like that. Like, you cannot use your campaign money to keep yourself alive. So you have to either be an incumbent who's getting paid to campaign, or be independently wealthy, or campaign part-time because you have to hold down a fucking job to keep yourself alive, which is what I had to do. Like, that is the only way to legally campaign. And you can even get in trouble for doing like a GoFundMe or something else, like to try to like sidestep and crowdfund your living expenses while you're campaigning can still get you into trouble, because if you use the same like social media account to promote both things, you're fucked. Or like, if you mention both things on the same stage, or like, you know, if there's any kind of crossover between those two accounts and how you're raising money for them, you're fucked. So like, you have to be independently wealthy.
Guys.
Yeah,
we're just a little guy. Like, we're not raising freaking like 50-70 grand here. Like, but they're more harsh on us type people.
Yeah, I mean, while I was running for New York City Council, I was homeless and unemployed, and like, you know, sometimes I needed the $50 that I had just raised on a good like podcast appearance to buy myself dinner, because like, I didn't have any money, because I actually, about a month into the campaign, I quit my job to campaign full time, and like, thank God I had a support system around me and friends and family and such that like helped keep me alive. And you know, I stayed in a friend of mine's couch for probably almost a month. You know, and like, I had people around me that helped out, but if I didn't go at the time go to a church full of like dual income, no kids couples that were making like 250-300 grand a year and not having much to spend it on, and like already really liked me as a person before I launched my campaign, I would have been fucked. Like, that's what really pushed me through, was I had a bunch of people that just had enough money and like enough caring, and like there was one like father of three that like is a stay-at-home dad and like used to be politically active and isn't anymore, and he was like, you know, you remind me of me when I was your age, and like anything you need, let me know. He like bought me a new Metro card a couple times. I house sat for them while they were on vacation, and I had nowhere else to stay. Like, they were great. But if it wasn't for that, I would have literally died trying to run for city council and get the 350 votes that I ended up getting.
No, it really is like, I mean, a lot of stuff in life is like that. Even like when you want to start your own business, right? It's like, can I afford this as I am, you know? So definitely that was definitely what pushed me too, was just the online force mommy thing. I'm like, well, at least I have that. And then when it blew up, I was like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna use that. We're gonna use that for sure. Like, it's so bizarre, but it just, when he went after me, it was just like, holy shit. But and I had friends who showed up in the Twitter files and stuff, and I'm like, this is the white pill stuff. Like, this is the stuff where it's like, these people notice us, and they know, even though we're one of 330 million, they notice us. They banned us. They didn't want us to talk. Like, so
yeah,
I don't know. I'm excited. I'm really excited to talk to all the different people, because there's a whole new community I don't know anyone in, and like, so it's just gonna be fun. I'm excited.
I really like what you were mentioning earlier about like talking to the right about left issues from the right and vice versa. So you're not like preaching stereotypical Republican talking points to Republicans as like, you know, oh, I'm the best of both worlds, kind of Gary Johnson BS. It's like, you know, telling Republicans why Republicans should care on a right wing or thought process about government spending and like police, you know, a left wing issue that you're able to preach to the right. I like that a lot. I think that we need to do
That's
more
what
of
we
that.
need to do. And I think if you really, so when they wrote the one article, they're like, they're bringing libertarian politics in. And I'm like, well, yeah, government should actually be kind of worried about that, because the libertarian politics are the only ones that are like, no, actually, we're going to protect the people from you. Like, that's my only goal. When I get in, my job is to protect the people from the government, and that's like it, right? So the more you can kind of like get that across to people, and like I totally support the like LGBT and everything. Like, I'm weirdo myself, right? And like, for 10 years, the gay club, I would go dance there. I would spend money there. I was friends with trans and trans spectrum friends who are older and stuff, because they had no friends. They had no one who loved them. So I would accept them and love them and like all this. And then guess what? When COVID happened, that club was the first club to do a vax pass. And I was like, okay, you know, and I won't blame my friends for it and stuff, but it was like, like, you can just point these things out to people where it was like, there was the authoritarianism is what matters. It's authoritarianism from the right or the left what fucks everything up, you know? So the more you can point, I've lived such a random life that I've been on every side of everything, and I've seen so much stuff that it's like, I feel like I can explain to people. Our enemy's very specific right now. Like, it's very specific, and it's not because of this person or the right or the left. Like, it's up or down, you know? So,
Yeah.
I'm trying.
And both sides seem to somewhat understand that. Like, I can talk to both my sister, who is like vaxxed and boosted and like avid like John Oliver watcher, and oh, come on. All right, everybody. I'm not sure what's going on. If we can get Jess back, we'll wrap up with her as well. But in the meantime, tune in next week. We've got Jonathan Casey, the founder and chair of the Classical Liberal Caucus. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got Gabby Cordova, the outreach director for Mike Termont's campaign for president. Definitely tune back in for those. They will be a great time. Sorry for the technical difficulties again this week, and I promise next week I'm going to change up a little bit of the software that I'm using because this is annoying. But come back next week. Casey's going to be great. Until then, keep up the fight.
Wait.